He got his BSN and BA English at St. Paul University in Tuguegarao City, MA in Nursing from NYU, and PhD in Urban Health System at Rutgers State University, New Jersey, and New Jersey Institute of Technology. So let's welcome Leo.
Good morning, once again. I just would like to give a brief background of this International Nursing Conference, which was brought to the Philippines by the Philippine Nurses Association of America way back in 1996. So we are now running our 11th international conference. And I think, of course, a lot of the past presidents of PNAA are here, and I thank them for continuing this program, because we bring all those nurses from all over the world, Filipino nurses all over the world. I think Dr. Carmen Galan, just to give tribute to her, she was the proponent of this international nursing conference. Thank you, Dr. Galan. And of course, many of my predecessors sitting in the front, who basically had international conference every 2 years. And of course, I really thank the partnership of the Association of Deans of Philippine Colleges of Nursing and the Philippine Nurses Association, because without this, I think this is a great opportunity for us to get together every 2 years. Okay, so actually Dr. Davidson provided a really good background with my presentation. Actually, a number of my slides already have been explained by Dr. Davidson. But my focus is on nursing education, basically innovations in nursing education. So if you look at my objectives, it is to illustrate the future of nursing education and to explore innovative approaches to teaching and learning. So what is innovation? Actually, Dr. Davidson had a similar definition. As you can see, it is a process of diffusion and a process of transforming ideas into real value. So that if you look at innovation, it's something new, it's a new process, it's a new strategy, it's a new discovery, but not everything that is new is innovation. Sometimes we are just redressing something old technique and we're putting a different color or a different dress. But what we're trying to get here is basically something that works, something that is effective and efficient process. So I like this. Actually, I just found this last night. I can't understand why people are frightened of new ideas. I am frightened of the old ones, actually. Oftentimes we say, a seasoned nurse, a new nurse comes into the nursing unit, and I can't believe that's the way they educated you. Many of us were educated in the 80s, in the 70s, in the 60s. The way we were educated in the 20th century is no longer working with the new generation that we have at this point. So that we cannot compare the way we were educated to the way we should be educating our new generation. So think about that, seasoned nurses. We are not always right with what we think. Because oftentimes every time I think of it, the way I taught in the late 80s, I started teaching in the late 80s. Sometimes I'm frightened to think about the way I taught, because many of those students were scared and afraid coming to my classes, because if they cannot answer the questions, I let them stood. They stood the entire time until they were able to answer the question again, which is ridiculous. So, why are more innovative practices needed in nursing education? Why do we need to innovate in nursing education? First, increasing complexity of healthcare environment. Dr. Davidson provided a lot of those pictures of broken healthcare environment in the United States, and I'm sure it is too here in the Philippines. If you look at the complexity of healthcare in the United States, Dr. Davidson showed you that for one surgery, I think she put there 27 healthcare professionals would have to interact with the patient to be able to deal with one surgery. Actually, if you could just show me the picture. Next slide. Take a look at this. Healthcare is a complex system. Going through a surgery like this, it would allow you would meet 27 different people. And Dr. Davidson talked about our current healthcare system. When my child, or me, or my wife, go for a procedure and trying to get reimbursement, because I would be paying thousands and thousands of dollars. Just for me to talk to the insurance company and get reimbursement takes a day or many more follow-ups. So think about the regular person. I'm already a healthcare professional. And for me to follow through reimbursement so that the services that were provided for me can be reimbursed. Think about the ordinary person. Think about the person in the United States who could hardly speak English. So that is the challenge of our healthcare system. Can you go back, please? Go back. So, complexity of illness. Complexity of illness. When I went to the US in the late 80s, that was the time of HIV/AIDS. At that time, I was so scared. It was on my orientation when they put me on a side where it's almost all HIV/AIDS patients. You know what we did then? I double glove, I double gown, I put a face mask, I put a hat, and even a boot for my feet. It was so scary. At this time, how do you care for HIV/AIDS? They're in the same room with other patients. We just have to practice universal precautions. So think about the complexity of illness. There is always something new each time. Every time you turn around, almost every year, there is something new. Think about flu. We have the seasonal flu, we have the variant flu, we have the swine flu, we have the avian flu, we have the SARS, that was an H1N1 flu. You have the Ebola virus coming in, we had it, and we were so scared that healthcare facilities basically bought so much material, equipment, very expensive equipment, so that we could gown up like a robot to be able to care for patients with Ebola. And we were so scared. And we have the Zika virus. So a nurse needs to be innovative each time, to be able to deal with the complexity of illnesses. If you could go 2 steps. And that's one way to innovate. We need to innovate because we are always running out of equipment and supply. At one point, masks for the H1N1 flu ran out of masks, and that is being innovated. In the US right now, we are running out of normal saline because of the effect of storms in Puerto Rico and Mexico that produce normal saline. Go back once. Regional nursing shortage, and there's nursing faculty shortage. There is a shortage of nurses in the US, but it's regional. Not in the East Coast, not in the West Coast, but in areas, in rural areas, in the Montanas, in the Dakotas, where nurses don't want to go there. Okay? So there is a shortage of nurses, and there is also faculty shortage. I think the latest statistics in terms of faculty shortage, it's like 8% vacancy of faculty shortage in the US. So that we need to innovate in terms of preparing educators in the US in a very quick mode. One way we do is to provide certification for nurse educators, where we would run 1 week, 2 weeks of certification for nurses to become nurse educators. Because if they would have to go through the doctoral program, it would take a while, and we need them already to do clinical. And most Board of Nursing require the masters, at least masters prepared for clinical instruction. There is insufficient clinical placement. This is felt in most places, even at this time, because of the many regulations. In New Jersey, every clinical instructor is 1:10. Well, in many healthcare facilities, they say, well, you can only come to my hospital, but you only can bring 8 students. So now, there is this decreased need, there's decreased faculty, and there is increased need of supervision for students. So how can we bridge that is to be able to be innovative in terms of how can we bring students in clinical, maybe doing clinical simulation in school. So these are the reasons why we need to be innovative, right? Next slide. One more. Okay. Innovations in nursing education. These are the things that we can do in nursing education. First, collaborative agreement between academia and practice and development of interprofessional education. I will explain all of this in a moment. New degree programs and new models of academic progression, simulation, virtual technology, and narrative pedagogies, and increased use of technology in classroom. So I'll take the first one. We need new and stronger relationship between academia and practice. Oftentimes, there is this disconnect of educators preparing nurses in the future and the administrators who should be employing the nurses. There is that disconnect. So we need to increase collaboration where educators and administrators in healthcare facilities should be working together. And at the same time, we encourage interprofessional education. We encourage teams to work together after graduating from the university. But what do? We don't necessarily educate them together. So we educate them in silos. So there are programs in the United States wherein all healthcare professionals are taking the same courses. In my university, courses like anatomy and physiology, microbiology, ethics, all those who are pursuing healthcare programs are basically studying together so that while they're taking the same courses, they're already developing those working relationships. So upon graduation, they're not expected to be working alone. The newer generation, you would see that. It's so interesting that when they do rounds, hospital rounds in the hospital, I see this a lot because I also work in the hospital, wherein the medical residents and the hospitalist advanced practice nurses doing rounds together. And sometimes the nurses who are hospitalists are the ones educating the medical residents. And it is so exciting to see the new partnership being forged by these different groups. Well, it was mentioned, Dr. Davidson talked about the triple A. We need to improve patient care. We need to improve population health and reduce per capita costs. And she also mentioned the quadruple A to be able to satisfy, or there should be satisfaction of those who provide care. Otherwise, we cannot retain our nurses at the bedside. So this is one of the things that we do. How many of you have heard of dedicated education units? Okay, I see 2, 3 hands. Way back, I would say maybe 6, 7 years ago, we got a grant to establish a dedicated education unit with a medical center. This DU, it is an innovative model of clinical education where the practice environment actively participates in the educational process of nursing students. So you would see, right? You would see how this is done. There's partnership of the school and the academic medical center. Staff nurses work as clinical instructors. The clinical instructors are provided training by faculty. Each clinical instructor has usually 2 students, and that 2 students will work with that staff clinical instructors for the entire semester. So that we also have the exclusive use of that one med-surg unit or maybe a critical care unit. So the staff nurses in one unit are teaching our students that is being facilitated by our faculty. So this is a win-win situation. We always complain the practice gap so that when we graduate our students, they always say, I don't know what you do in school. Your students cannot even perform this, cannot even make a decision, cannot do critical thinking. So now, as we prepare our students doing a DEU, this is in their senior year, you've been working with the staff nurse for the entire semester, you are provided, as a student who go through the DU, you are insured for an interview at least. And it has been found that there is a shorter orientation so that the hospital can save money and the students are ready to practice. And I would say that most of our students who go through this program really, they basically are so proud of that experience and they're so ready to work right after that. Residency program, internship. There are many forms of residency program in the U.S. and I think this should be something that should be promoted, because what do we do with doctors? Before they practice, they have residencies. Why not nurses? Why can we not have nurse residency program? Well, in the U.S. it exists in different forms. Like, I know in New York Presbyterian, they have 1 year of nurse residency program. In some hospitals, you have to pay to go to nurse residency programs. In my hospital, I'm not so happy about it, I've been fighting on it, that you are hired, you go to the residency program for 8 to 12 weeks, no pay. If you are able to survive it, you're hired. That's another way of looking at it. But there was a program in Kentucky at one point wherein right after graduation, you go through nurse residency and then you could take the board, or maybe the vice versa. But it did not necessarily work that way. So I think we need to be more innovative to look at residency programs that would work for our new grad nurses. New degree programs and new models of academic progression. There are many different programs right now that basically allow our nurses to have quicker academic progression. The idea is there should be seamless progression of our education. As you know, in the United States, I'm sure you might have heard that our entry-level nursing, before you're able to practice, there are many different preparations. One, you could be a diploma nurse. Diploma nurse, you graduate from a hospital. Second, you could be an associate degree nurse, where you go through a community college, around 2 to 3 years. Or you could go to a 4-year Bachelor's of Science in Nursing program, or you can go to an MSN, straight Master of Science in Nursing. All these people, diploma, associate, BSN, MSN, take the same licensing exam. So now, IOM, the Institute of Medicine, would like to see that all our nurses in the US, at least 80%, should be BSN by 2020. We are moving towards that, I think around 60% at this point. I'm not sure if we will be able to attain the 80% by 2020. But we are trying to find ways to accelerate the progression of those diploma nurses, the associate degree nurses, and even the baccalaureate program nurses. We got it together here in the Philippines. In 1965, delegation from the Philippines attended the American Nurses Association convention. At that time, ANA talked about making BSN as the entry level of nursing practice in the US. Well, we still are not all BSN entry level practice. The Philippine delegation came back in the 1970s, and in 1974, it was legislated that BSN will be the minimum entry level in nursing here in the Philippines. And the graduation of the first BSN, I believe, was in 1979, 1980. We got it together since then, and we still have not gotten it together in the US. So the idea is, there are many programs that we can accelerate. There is an associate degree nursing. At the same time, while you're doing your associate degree, you're enrolled with a university offering a BSN, so that as you finish your APN, within a year or two, you are a BSN. There are students who complete, there are other programs that, a lot of combinations. I know actually Johns Hopkins offer a Master of Science in Nursing as an entry level. So that is your entry to nursing practice. You have an MSN. There are also many combinations. There is the doctor, actually Johns Hopkins also has a Doctor of Nursing Practice and a PhD program. This is one thing I really would like to challenge the Philippine educational system. We have envisioned, I think this was in 2004 when they started talking about TNP program. And the first product is around 2009. Doctor of Nursing program is a clinical doctorate. The clinical doctorate when they are expected to work at the bedside, they're expected to be advanced practice nurses. We have increased our doctorate prepared nurses as a result of the increased graduation from Doctor of Nursing programs, which is a clinical doctorate. Many schools also have a transition from a DNP to PhD program, wherein your clinical doctorate, you take some more credit, and you will have a research-based doctorate. So there are many programs like that, and there are many combinations of educational programs in the U.S. to accelerate and to increase the educational preparation of nurses. How about this, Dr. Davidson, what do you think? How about the clinical doctorate as an entry level to practice? Well, that is a challenge. Why? I will tell you. We work with many clinical doctorate personnel. We work with the physician with an MD. We work the beginning entry level for pharmacy is Doctor of Pharmacy. We work with the entry level of PT and OT, Doctor of PT and Doctor of OT. We would like to claim our seat in the table with an associate degree. Doesn't work that way. We need to have somehow a degree comparable to our other healthcare professionals so that we will be able to discuss at the same level issues that affect patient care. What do you think, people? That would be a challenge. I'm looking forward when that happens in the United States, and I hope that the Philippine educational system will start considering a clinical doctorate, not as an entry level at this point, but to increase the level of practicing students, practicing nurses at the clinical bedside to be doctoral nurse prepared. Simulation technology. Technological innovation has affected the delivery of nursing education. And basically, it helps the clinical placement of students by using simulation technology. It basically promotes active learning and problem-based learning. If you could, I don't know if I'll be able to play this. My son is a broadcast journalism major and a legal studies. He covered our simulation lab, and I don't know if it works, but we'll try. This is his coverage for our simulation of William Paterson University. I'm just showing you how it should look. Each time a clinical instructor is absent or in leave of absence, our simulation department assists us in providing simulation activities for our students so that our students don't have to miss clinical. We could skip it. Okay. So this is another alternative. Like I was saying earlier, clinical should be 1:10, but some hospitals say you could only bring 8. The other 2 could stay in the lab.
Hey, my name is Jurado, and this is the Inside Scoop on the Nursing Department.
Hi, I am Kim Domino. I am a faculty member here at the William Paterson University nursing program. And we have this new building. It's beautiful. We have extensive simulation rooms here, which they have improved greatly from the last building we were at. My personal experience at William Paterson University has been wonderful. I came here for a graduate program, did nursing education, master's in science and nursing, and I haven't left. And that was in 2001. So I've been here quite a while, and I love this facility. Pete's adult simulation, and it's really a great experience for students, and a great experience for faculty as well. And we're looking forward to measuring some outcomes from this program someday soon to provide some quantitative outcomes based on our simulation experience.
So the simulations that we do in this building are very intimidating. I'm not gonna lie, they're intimidating at first, but it's really reassuring when the professors tell you that they don't want you to be intimidated. This is where you can make mistakes. So knowing that your professors are there to support you, and that they're not gonna scold you for making a mistake, but rather they're gonna help you get better after your mistakes, and you can learn. You're just learning in the classroom. First 2 years, I would be learning in more nursing. I did biology in the first 2 years, and then it wasn't going well for me, and I had not even considered nursing until my good friends actually recommended me to be a nurse. At first I didn't think much about it, but then I did my research, and I actually saw what nurses did, and how much patient care is involved in. And it's just it's a great program. I really love it.
Hi, my name is Aya Suleiman. I am a nursing major here at Paterson University, and I'm in my second year of sophomore. I'm really looking forward to just working with the simulators, with the dummies getting.
That's just a part of it. Basically, as you can see, our students are performing. At the other side of the mirror, it is a one-way mirror. The person who is managing it, as well as the other side of the mirror, are students performing, and other side is other students watching how it's being done, so they can critique their fellow classmates. So that's another way of doing clinical. You can proceed to the next. Or the other way, another method would be through virtual technology. Next. One more. No. Back. One more. Okay. This is use of virtual technology, virtual simulation technology. It's through Second Life. This you could assign to individual students for makeup or just to encourage critical thinking. And basically you could set up scenario for students to follow, and you could do this in almost every course, like a physical assessment. You could program that computer, the virtual technology, in terms of the patient responding to the assessment of the student. Sometimes the patient would say, if you skip the system while you're assessing the patient, you didn't even listen to my abdomen, something to that effect. Or it's programmed in terms of therapeutic responses, right? The patient is programmed with therapeutic responses so that if you ask the wrong question, it would redirect you, or it would give you incorrect answers.
How did the patient do during the climate?
He did fine. Other than some minor pain issues, he pretty much slept the whole way over.
Did he require any fluid pulses or blood during the flight?
No, he didn't require any medicine. What room, doctor?
Room 10 at the far end. Any problems with oxygenation or ventilation?
No, sir. Like I said, it was very stable the whole way over.
That's great. Is everything ready?
Yeah, tuned up, we're ready to roll.
Great. Get you slowly to the room. It's a tight fit. Good pulse. That's great.
Bring it inside. That's it. Take this down. Watch your feet. Get the portable. Put it outside. I got it. Thank you.
All right. Why don't you go ahead and put them up in the floor?
Yes.
may have a neck injury, so we've got to be careful with transporting. All right. Make sure all the lines are just, we'll go halfway, and just go the rest of them. Okay? Okay, go. On my count. 1, 2, 3. Again, on my count. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we'll go.
So it evaluates patient safety, step-by-step process, the procedures that are to be performed. That is just an example of virtual simulation. The next thing I'd like to talk about is narrative pedagogies, the use of narrative pedagogies. And I think this is something that is missing in many of our schools, even in the United States, wherein we don't teach enough reflective practice. And we need to apply knowledge and experiences to real-life situations. We need to teach our students to reflect, the reflection in practice and reflection on practice. What's the difference of reflection in practice and on practice? One difference is that reflection in practice is while you're doing a procedure and you don't, and basically there is an alteration in the normal pathway that the teacher would be able to correct it right there. Let's say you are starting, you're putting a nasogastric tube and you feel a resistance. You just don't teach the student, but basically as a faculty would say, okay, what else can you do to make sure you'll be able to put the nasogastric tube properly? Maybe repositioning the patient, maybe allowing the patient to swallow, well, that type of thing. So while reflection and practice is that you go home at the end of the day, you could come up with a journal. I remember writing diaries while I was a nursing student and requiring it to my students. What is the content of my diary at the time? I usually write at 9 a.m., I got to the clinic, at 9:30, I was this, at 10 o'clock, I did this. But there was no reflective practice. Instead of thinking about how could I perform, I could have performed that procedure better. What are the things that I was missing? So that is more of a reflective practice, right? So that teach students to have 1-minute reflection. You could do this in almost every class that you have, in every clinical that you have. You could have a pre-conference, you could have a post-conference, you use 1-minute reflection. Make sure to be able to come up with the right questions to be able to have a good 1-minute reflection. There should be more use of self-directed learning. Nowadays, we should expect more from our students to be self-directed, as long as we provide them clear guidelines and rubrics. We should not there should be measurement in terms of student outcomes. We should not be focusing on creating more policies to keep our students in the classroom. We should not, as long as they provide outcomes that we expect, we don't have to require them to sit in a class for 90 minutes or 120 minutes. The thing is, they are adult, and we should be using more of this, andragogy. Andragogy are adult principles. Pedagogy is principles in teaching children. But we should use more of this, where learners should be involved in the planning and evaluation of their instruction. We should allow our students to plan their instruction and the evaluation of their instruction. Experience, including mistakes, provides the basis for the learning activities. This is so important. The third bullet. Learners are more interested in learning subjects that have immediate relevance. Immediate relevance, folks. Are we still teaching? I think one of the Baliktura where I was, I gave that example. I hope that we're still not teaching our students to do mitral corner of bed when we make beds. Do we still expect them? I expect you to do a mitral corner for that bed. In reality, we don't do those things anymore. Okay? Think about the things that are more important. I hope that you are not letting your students develop a 5-page nursing care plan. That doesn't work anymore. It doesn't develop your critical thinking. But instead, bring them to clinical, assess their patients with them, and right there and then, tell me about your care plan for this patient. Or find time within the clinical time, because usually they have 8 to 12 hours. Why don't you develop top priority nursing diagnosis for your patient. Rather than sending them home, develop this long care plan. What happens with that? Sleepless nights, they come to clinical the next day, it no longer works, right? You like that, students, I'm sure. Use of flipped classrooms. How many of you have heard of flipped classrooms? Okay, I see some hands. You see flipped classrooms? The traditional classroom is that teacher's role is sage on the stage. We talk the entire time, okay? In flipped classroom, teacher's role, guide on the side, okay? This time let the students present the case. There should be no, there is no time for you to go over the pathophysiology, the science and symptoms. They could read that in books. They can read the definition of malaria, the signs and symptoms of malaria, the diet, but think about how long this patient would stay in the hospital. What would be the determining factors if the patient could be discharged or not? What are the possible complications that can happen when taking care of patients with malaria? That type of thing. Let them read, and in the classroom, let them work together with other students doing cooperative learning. Right? The idea of the classroom is that you need to hook and motivate students to want to learn more about the content topics. Next. Here, provide opportunities for them to really experience things. Talking about the solar eclipse, provide the opportunity. Bring the students outside and let them see the solar eclipse, right? So that in nursing, instead of talking about a chest tube, why don't you get an actual chest tube, bring it to your lab, and here's the chest tube, how it works. Rather than here is the 3 compartments of a chest tube, this is it doesn't work that way. Okay, next. You need to engage your students. I don't expect you to be talking the entire time. Let the students speak, let the students present the cases. It should be authentic learning experience that they would remember, okay? They should be able to remember the content for that day. And it should facilitate critical reflective thinking. Critical reflective thinking. And one of them, I will show you an example. Here's what we do. And in one of my classes, I do a texting to all the students. They all have my cell phones. And that's just a question. It could be a 1-minute question. Do you believe that you can always trust your first impression? Why or why not? The student answered, I think it's good to follow your instinct, but you should not judge people. I always try to remember. So there's a change of behavior. There's a change of thinking. There is a class that I teach chronic illness. And in the chronic illness, at the beginning of the semester, each student is assigned a chronic illness. They draw lots. One of them would have a heart failure, another would be diabetic student, another would be lupus, another one would be depression. And they try to assume that role throughout the semester. From time to time, before class, or maybe early in the morning, I basically send an email and would say, how are you feeling today? I realize you have rheumatoid arthritis. How are your joints? Did you take your medicine? Or how are you feeling today, when a person would have a depression type of thing. And you would see that you know that they have to study the disease because they're assigned to. What's your blood sugar today? The person with a diabetic person. So you've got to find ways to let the students read and critically think. Because how do we learn in the first place? Think about this. How do we learn? At the bottom, you let them read, retain 10%. Let me talk to you. They hear my words, 20%. They view picture, 30%. You look at that at the top. You let them participate in your activities, they will retain 100%. You let them simulate the activity, it's 90%. You let them teach the activity, 70%. So even in grad school, I teach health policy in the doctoral program. One of the things I do, hey, let's go to the State House. I bring them to the State House and really see how the Congress works. I teach a leadership course. We have to attend a professional nursing organization, and there is a lot of reflection after that. I teach an urban population course. What do? We assign them inner cities, that they really have to do a case studies of inner cities where the mortality and morbidity of those cities and the social determinants of that inner city. So think about real experiences that would allow real learning. Increased use of technology in classroom. How many of you have used e-textbook here in the Philippines? E-textbook, that's what we do. I remember going to my classes with, it's like a big bag full of books. I could hardly carry it because our library only had one, okay? So here in class, e-textbook. And I would say, okay, open your book, page 17, read it. Why not let them do that? Even in the use of, in clinical, we don't allow them to use cell phones. Why not, if it's useful? Why do you expect them to memorize almost every side effects of a medication? Let them open it, let them read it, let them calculate it right at the bedside, okay? But of course, there should be strict guidelines when to use a cell phone or not, okay? E-learning, e-portfolio, I think it was discussed. E-portfolio, I allow, basically one of the activities in leadership is to be able to come up with electronic portfolio, wherein you talk about your resume, you're able to come up with asking for a person for a letter of recommendation, that type of thing. You could upload all your achievements, that type of thing. So that upon graduation, right after graduation, everything is ready. Or, as you write your cover letter, you refer them to your e-portfolio, okay? Use of YouTube videos, and also there is now the National League of Nursing Center for Innovation and Simulation Technology. Parting thoughts, nursing curriculum needs to be constantly evolving. There is demand for nursing faculty to be forward thinkers and technological savvy. I know that some reflections yesterday from Dr. Pacquiao, she mentioned that some people complain that faculty don't know how to use the computer. That's a basic skill that you should have. There is a need for nursing practice to partner with the academia to prepare nurses of the future, because we need to bridge the gap of the clinical practice and education and clinical practice. Thank you very much.